Hello! So today's video is aimed at those of you who are very young with your trichotillomania, or you've just been diagnosed, or you think you have trichotillomania. I just couldn't sleep last night and I ended up writing a list of stuff that may help you. So this is a very spontaneous video, it's totally unplanned, but we shall see how we go. Now, bearing in mind that all of this is from my perspective and things that I've sort of learned, but it doesn't necessarily mean that this is what you have to do. If it helps you, then okay. If not, just try something else. And everything that I'm about to say isn't in a specific order. And finally, this is Blossom, and Blossom's sort of around me at the moment, so if you see a little tail waggling, that's what it is. You match my top. You're covered in lipstick now. Now, first things first, just breathe in and out. That sounds very patronising, but just take a breather before you just dip your toes into the world of trichotillomania. It's important to stress that you are going to be okay, and even if the people around you aren't necessarily supportive, there are people out there that are supportive and love you for who you are. Boom. Lovely big intro. The first thing I recommend to do is to go out and buy some fidget toys, such as tangles, bracelets, and if you can't afford to do that, or you're not in a position to spend money, stuff like that, just look around the house for anything you can play with. Things like hair ponies or elastic bands, just little things to keep you occupied, keep your hands, yeah. My favourite fidget toy is a tangle. Tangles are fantastic, not just for trichotillomania, for ADHD, for OCD, just anything, yes, this is a lifesaver. And when you buy them, they normally come in boxes like this, a little triangle box. I mean, the possibilities are endless. You can play with jewellery or tassels on curtains. Just look around, honestly, somewhere around you there is something that you can play with. The next thing I've got is, if you feel comfortable, go to your doctor for support. Now, there is no medication currently for trichotillomania, but there's other things like anxiety medication or antidepressants that may help other stuff that's going on in your life that can affect your trichotillomania. So for example, right now I'm on antidepressants, not for depression, but for anxiety and OCD. Not all doctors are supportive or kind. Lots of them don't even know what trichotillomania is. So if your first appointment doesn't go very well, don't worry, that happens. Just keep going and keep trying to find a doctor that will listen. They're out there. They just take a while to find. I don't want to put people off by saying that, but it's taken me many years to find a doctor that actually says, ah, I know what that is. Medication isn't always the answer, but it is worth trying, because sometimes it does work, or it helps a bit. Which leads me on to my next point. Try not to focus on getting rid of the trich. It isn't always a phase. For many of us, it is lifelong, and that sounds really scary, but it does get better. For me personally, I found it better to accept it, and even though it hurts me sometimes, I sort of have to live with it and work with it. Yeah. I've sort of met thousands of people with this, and there's only 2 people that I've met that have stopped pulling during their lifetime, and for a very long period as well, not just for a year or 2 years, like 10 years or so. I really hope that makes sense. It's a very difficult topic, this one. The next thing to do is to get familiar with TLC, or it's now been renamed to BFRB. It is very complicated and I still can't get my head around all these letters, but I will put links in the video description for you. There's a few retreats and conferences in America that happen every year, so if you're in a position to go to one of those, I really recommend it. For me, I sort of benefited more when I was a younger tricher and I hadn't really met anyone before. I don't really feel I need to go anymore, but for those of you who are on your own and want to meet people, then that's a really good opportunity. Even though it's in America, so if you're stuck in Europe, like me, I'm very sorry. Flights are so expensive. If you're someone that's still at school, I recommend talking to your tutor or getting your parents to talk to whoever is the go-to person at your school if you have troubles. It's worth letting the school know so that if you do have a bad period with your trichotillomania, they know what it is. Especially if you want to wear a hat, or you start losing big clumps of hair, or sometimes if you want to bring these in, letting the school know first just saves so much trouble. In the past, I've had teachers approach me thinking that I had cancer and I wasn't telling anybody, so it's worth letting them know at the beginning so it doesn't even get that far. It's worth asking your doctor or your school for counselling, because even though that might not help the trich, it just gives you someone to talk to. And yes, it can be completely overwhelming talking to your school, but on the TLC website there's some stuff that you can send to your school, things to help your school understand what it is. So again, video description. Now the next one, some people may disagree with me, but from experience, this is how I feel. If you've just discovered you have trichotillomania, then the first thing lots of us tend to do is to go onto the internet and look at Wikipedia or look at Tumblr and the tags and Instagram. And sometimes that can be very upsetting. As a tricher of like 15 years, I no longer look at the Tumblr trichotillomania tag because it really upsets me. It's very triggering. Also, lots of us tend to only share when we're going through our bad periods, so suddenly you can be overwhelmed in so much sadness and distress, and it's not always like that. And also I worry that it sort of leads on to you becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you see loads of people in distress and at a very low point with their trichotillomania, you start panicking yourself about whether or not you're going to get that bad, and then sometimes you do end up being that bad because you know it can get that bad. So I'm not saying cut yourself off from the internet, but I'm just saying treat it with caution. That goes for my stuff as well. I'm not just saying my stuff's perfect. No, I've gone through bad periods as well and I've shared a lot of stuff. But yeah, be cautious. It's got quite dark. Ooh, making the light better. I think the next thing I'm about to say is more of a tip as opposed to help. Not everyone around you is going to understand your trichotillomania, and many people will never understand. Personally, I find it's good to give people a bit of space, some time to get their heads around what you're going through. It can be very difficult when the people around you don't understand and get really aggressive towards what you're going through. So I try to think about it like this. If the people around you don't love you for who you are, or don't accept you for who you are, then they shouldn't be a part of your life. Now that is easier said than done, because with family, you're stuck with them. But in terms of friends or ex-friends, it's easier to sort of part the waves. But yeah, Trich is a weird one. There may be bullies down the line, but you've just got to be tough and stand your ground. I think I should do a whole video on bullying, because it's a whole topic. I can't summarise that in one line. I have done some other videos called Trich Tips, where I just give general tips about trichotillomania and how to sort of combat it. So if you watch that video there, or if you look at the links in the video description, there's more tips there for you. So yeah, I really hope that this has helped some of you, my young trichers. It can be very daunting entering the world of trichotillomania and understanding it for the first time, but I am here, and there's loads of people in the comments box as well. If any of you guys watching have some other tips or recommendations or ideas, then please leave those downstairs as well, because I know that there's so many people that need help. So yeah, I think that's the end of my video. Blossom was really quiet. Well done, Blossom. Okay, so I'll see you soon, everyone.